Hey guys, I'm Naya and welcome back to the channel. Before we get started with today's video, I just wanted to show you the new dice that just dropped on the Sleeve Chief website, and it's the pot of all dice. Basically, it's every single pot card of like the top, the most important ones, the coolest ones, the most used ones for every single number on the dice, and it just looks so good. I'm going to show you the close-up. I think it looks really cool. So if you want to get your hands on the dice, make sure to use my code SHADOW for 5% off at checkout, and also just use the affiliate link you have in my description box below to easily get to the website and purchase the dice or any other accessories you want. I think it looks honestly amazing, so make sure to snatch them while they still last. And with that, let's begin. For today's video, we're going to be doing the best decks tier list post the 250th YCSs that just took place last weekend. I figured it would be cool to talk about it right now because the format really changed in the last couple of weeks, and the YCSs were a great indicator of that. There's not a lot of decks on here. There is a little more than 20 decks, and I also changed up the tiers. So if there is any deck that you feel like should be featured, let me know down in the comments. I'm very open to answering where I would place the deck. However, if there's a deck that's not on here, it's probably not on here because it wouldn't be able to compete right now because it's just not as great. A lot of decks could be put in the rogue or not good category, and a lot of times they just have a lot of downsides about them. Maybe they're not exactly well equipped to go up against Kashtira, which is like the best deck of the format, or they just don't have enough space to play tech cards, which are really important right now. Hand traps, also going second cards like board breakers, power spells, all of that. A lot of times they're just struggling against certain things that are present in the meta. So the decks that I'm going to be covering today are among the top ones, and I also wanted to cover some of the ones that also topped YCSs, even if only one person topped with the deck. So that's it when it comes to the decks, and we can just go ahead and get started. The first deck, of course, is Despia, and in my opinion, Despia should be tier 1.5, and I actually made the tier 1.5 specifically for Despia, and I'm pretty sure there is going to be another deck or maybe two that goes on here. But basically it's not exactly tier 1 because it's struggling with a lot of things. There's consistency issues, there are issues with just cards like Ash, D-Barrier, just people being prepared for the matchup, and it's just not exactly there when you compare it to the top decks. So that's why, in my opinion, it should go in the tier 1.5 category. The next one is Dragon Link, and I think I want to put it in Rogue. Honestly, like Dragon Link, there's Bestial Control, everything that has to do with the dragon cards, at least in my opinion, is still not amazing. Just some people did well with it because they really grinded the deck and they were just good players. Like a lot of big names in the competitive environment played this deck, and you don't exactly see a lot of people with like not as many accomplishments seeing success with this particular deck, because overall Bestials are not amazing right now. They are maybe side cards if you're preparing for certain matchups, but just maining them and dedicating an entire deck to it feels a bit weird sometimes. You don't really know what your matchups are going to be, and yeah, like I said, there are some issues with the deck. So in my opinion, it should probably go like at the top of Rogue or maybe bottom of tier 2. But I think top of Rogue is fine. And then we have Dark World, and I've been saying this for some time. I don't mess with Dark World. I don't think it's good. I don't really, like the hand loop. I don't think the hand loop is what makes the deck good enough, is what I'm trying to say. Like, yeah, it's featuring the hand loop, but the deck is still not good. So even if they hand loop you like maybe once or maybe twice if you have an unlucky matchup, other than that, I still think the deck as a whole is not that terrible to go up against and is not that great by itself. There's a lot of RNG involved, and overall, in this particular format, a Rice Card Pass is just, kind of slaughtering Dark World and a lot of other decks, but Dark World is among them. So like I said, even if they have the hand loop, all of that going for it, I just still don't think it's better than Rogue. It's slightly falling off, and I don't really have an issue with it because I don't like the deck overall. But it did have a top, I think, in one of the YCSs. So there's that. Drytron, another deck that had a couple of tops. It's utilizing the Chaos Max together with Dynamondo, which is a neat combo, but I don't think overall Drytron is that great. I think it should go in like tier 2, maybe actually below Dark Road even. The issue with Drytron is if it goes first, it's great. If it goes second, it's going to struggle against the Rise Hard Pass. It doesn't have as many spots to play tech cards because you need a lot of engine, and then you have additional stuff. If you're playing the Chaos Max stuff, you can play Magic-y, you can play the Vanities, and it's just like there are so many things that Drytron needs to include in the deck that going second is going to be tougher immediately. Not to mention how important draw is right now in the format. Even though it's kind of a weird hand trap, a lot of people play it, and Dark World and Drytron both struggle against draw. And even if there's not exactly in every single person's main deck, more than likely they're gonna be siding it. So if they go up against Drytron or Dark World, immediately they have an upper hand by siding these cards, that card, draw. So yeah, I don't think it's as great. And as for Flunder, I actually am toying with the idea of putting it in tier 2. Like, honestly, Flunder, it's kind of a surprise factor, which is funny because like people were like, oh, it's falling off, Kashtira is like the new Flunder, and I was in that boat as well. I just felt like Flunder is going to completely fall off because a lot of Flunder players like switch to Kashtira. But right now, Flunder can be played without an extra deck, like we saw, getting top 4, I think, in one of the YCSs. And just overall, it doesn't struggle against the best decks. It doesn't struggle against the Rise Hard Pass. It's even able to play D-Shifter, so it's not struggling against that. And it's just, it doesn't exactly get hindered by a lot of decks and also tech cards that people are playing in this current format. So I think Flunder is not a bad choice, especially if you're good with it. Now, people are going to say, oh, Flunder is just a, you know, it's not such a skillful deck. And yeah, it's not as skillful as some of the combo stuff or whatever, but overall, I think it's one of the decks that really rewards you if you're a good Flunder player, if that makes sense. So I think it should be tier 2. I think if you take Flunder to an event and you really test with it and like completely mold the deck so it's able to compete in this format, you should do well, I think. So yeah. And then we have Kashtira. I want to put it in tier 1. Honestly, like, I'm spoiling it right now. I'm not putting anything in goated. I felt like last format with tier 0 Ishizu tier, that was goated. Kashtira is not. It's just the best deck right now because none of the decks are at such a high power level. And Kashtira is just really consistent. A Rise Hard Pass is annoying. And there's also all of the mind games, you know, when it comes to like, am I going for the 5-zone lock combo, 3-zone lock combo, a Rise Hard Pass? What are you gonna side against me? Are you gonna put in Lava Golem and Sphere mode and lose? Are you gonna put in Kaijus and then I go for the full zone lock? Are you playing Nibiru? It's just like, it's so weird. So a lot of times, really good Kashtira players, of course, are going to do well. Like I said, the deck is consistent, it's strong, it has a ton of interruptions that are just so different. Like sometimes a very, very good Diablosis snipe is going to completely hinder a strategy, a Rise Hard Pass. Sometimes just one Fenrir effect is going to completely stop an opponent in their tracks. So yeah, it is the best deck. As annoying as it is the best deck. And then we have Labyrinth. I'm gonna put it in tier 2. It is still above Flunder, I think, but like overall, the deeper we go into the format, I feel like a trap deck is going to struggle because more people are prepared for it, and trap decks really have that surprise factor when you don't really know how they're going to be built, which kinds of traps they're going to play. And overall, just spot removal is really strong. Like you have Compose, you have Overroot, there's Punishment, if you have that kind of extra deck. Like, at the beginning, sure, but right now, so many people side back row removal, not only for Labyrinth, but also for Runic. So cards like Cyclone are just going to go in against this matchup as well, and it's going to be even tougher for the Labyrinth player to compete. And I haven't even gotten to the part where it's just struggling with consistency a lot. Like, sometimes you just have to play a version where you have, like we saw in top... I'm not sure, like top 64, 32, I'm not sure how far the Labyrinth player got, but we saw one Labyrinth player on stream and their build was like just almost all monsters, because you need to see your engine, you need to have all of your furniture and all of that. And at that point, you're trying to have consistency, but then you're losing out on the spots where you'd be playing trap cards to actually compete with the meta. So it's just kind of weird. You don't really have space to play going second cards, because like Ross Fear Mode was in a lot of people's decks, but then Kashtira started to go for different plays, so it's not even that tried and true card you can put in your deck anymore, and it just becomes even tougher to contend. So I think tier 2 is like a solid spot for Labyrinth, because it does have some issues. So there's that. And Marincess, I wanted to include it. I think we saw one Marincess top. I did see one topping list, and it's like one of those decks that are going to almost shine, you could say, in a format like this, because they have a small engine and a ton of space to play hand traps and all of that. I'm pretty sure like Marincess puts in around 18 hand traps or going second cards, which is a lot. It is a lot for the deck. And also it's able to end on decent feuds, like with the Chap card, with the monster disruptions, a lot of follow-up, and I don't know, I think the deck has potential. I think I'll put it in Rogue though. It's still not as great as some of the other ones up here, but it's not bad, and it's also cheap to acquire, so if you want to play Marincess, you can go ahead and do so. Then we have Methmech. I think I'll put Methmech in tier 2. I'm pretty sure it should go like above Flunder and maybe still below Labyrinth. Or these two are kind of interchangeable actually, because Methmech can still struggle a bit. Arise Hard Pass is still really strong. Bishios are in a lot of people's side decks, so immediately they're gonna get sided in when you're up against a Methmech player. But other than that, like Super Factorio is busted. Access code is very easy to achieve an OTK, so you don't have to, you know, wait for your games to go on for really long. And just putting up a decent board with maybe a Heat Soul, so you get a ton of draw power, you draw into your hand traps. You're also quite consistent. You can play Small World and Pot of Duality and Pot of Desires if you want. So like, yeah, I think these two slots, like I said, are kind of interchangeable, but it should go in tier 2. And then we have Plunder. I'm gonna put it in Rogue, maybe like above Marincess actually, and Dark World should go a bit lower actually. Like I don't even want to talk about it. So Plunder Patrol, it can be played with Runic, it can be played with adventure stuff. It's just one of those decks that not a lot of people know, because it's very reactive, you know. It has to do with the opponent's attributes. Yord is an amazing piece of support, and then you pair that together with such a strong engine as adventure stuff or the Runic engine, and you get a ton of draw power. You get protection from the Wandering Griffin Rider if that's the version you're going for. And on top of that, your opponent probably doesn't know what's going on, and you have a ton of space to play hand traps. It's also one of the decks that like doesn't really reward a ton of misplays. Not that misplays are rewarded, but a lot of times you can save yourself by just playing a strategy that's really strong, so your misplays don't hurt as much. But with a deck like this that's inherently just around the rogue-ish spot in the meta, you cannot afford to make a mistake. So maybe it's not the go-to deck for a lot of people, but it is strong in my opinion. So if people turn to it, I think they are going to be doing quite well if they really test with it. At least that's the way I see it. Now we have Punk, and it's like pretty much in the same boat actually. Like we could place it like next to Plunder. Again, one of the decks where if you really know what you're doing, if you really know what's going on, if you know the ins and outs of your deck, you're probably going to be able to do well. But like, it's not a representation for every single Punk player or Plunder player or Marincess player, even Dragon Link player entering a tournament. I think the entire Rogue category, at least in this format, is like, okay, these decks are decent, they're kind of nice, and if you really test, you can probably do well, but they're not as great on the power level of the other decks. And it's pretty much the way Rogue decks function like all the time, but like at least right now, I feel like a lot of these Rogue decks can do well, more than in other formats. Like we saw in the last format, like pretty much everything was just oppressed because of tier. Right now, you're able to do well. However, you need to be really good with the deck. And another deck that really rewards skillful gameplay and kind of punishes misplays is Rika. I think Rika should go in tier 1.5. I think it's such an underrated deck, a really, really good deck. It's strong. It has different versions, actually. You have Sun Avalon Rika with the Lokai. I think that's the way it's pronounced. You can play this. We also saw a very weird plant Rika deck in Los Angeles, I think. It was the 250th Los Angeles YCS that did well, which was like a completely different build. And you're able to the boards you make, like, you have a ton of disruption that are just so unique, right? With the field spell, you're able to tribute your opponent's monsters for you to get pluses. You take control of the opponent's monsters, you negate stuff from the graveyard with Rika Princess. There's a lot that you're able to accomplish because it is a very strong combo deck. Of course, going first, you're going to be able to put up an insane board, and also going second, you don't really need a lot to get your stuff going. So if you're able to bait some stuff out, and you also have space to play tech cards and hand traps to go second easily, if you're able to do all of that and then play like one unexpected die or just normal summon a Lokai, you're probably good. Like, you're probably winning because it doesn't have a huge engine that you need to put on the field. You literally have a one card combo, so you can waste, quote unquote, waste all of the other cards to go second, to bait, to play, and then you just probably win. And going first, if you go uninterrupted, it's even easier. So it's a nice deck. In my opinion, it's strong. It's also quite easy to acquire. So like with the reprints, you're able to get that deck for quite cheap. Then we have this. I want to put the Runic for Hire deck in tier 2. I think I'm gonna put it quite high. To be honest with you, I think the deck has a ton of potential. It's pretty much very similar to Naturia Runic, so we can put this one on the list and discuss both of them. I wanted to put it in tier 1, and I still have the graphic with the Shizu cards, so like, ignore that, but like, the graphic is just here to represent Naturia Runic, basically. So the Runic for Hire deck, I think it's tier 2. It still is not as great as Naturia Runic. Like, Naturia Runic just is incredible because the engine functions together with Runic so well. Like, For Hire is just like, it feels like an engine that's like backed up with Runic, which is great, you know, it's nice. And we also saw a Kashira Runic version. I talked about the Plunder Patrol Runic version. It's one of those decks where your engine is decent, but it's not as great. So Runic is like this backbone that you have, so you're able to do well, and you're able to like draw into stuff with the link during the opponent's turn. I think you easily draw 3, and then with Fountain you draw even more, so you're able to put up bodies, disruptions, and all of that. And it's just one of those decks that people don't really know what it's doing because of the For Hire cards. But when it comes to the Naturia Runic deck, this one just feels like it was made for the Runic cards because you discard the Sacred Tree for Hugin. So like, how is that? There is no better synergy, at least in my opinion. Like, you're able to play this card at 3 at the Sacred Tree, and it's not even a brick because you're discarding it anyway, so you're getting additional pluses. And then you put up your monsters, which are like, it's so easy, right? You have one card combos, literally. You put up Naturia Beast like it's nothing. And Naturia Beast is kind of hard for people to go up against. You completely stop decks like, I don't know, Branded or something, because they are so reliant on spells. So to easily put up a board like this, and then just to go into different synchro monsters, if that's what you want to do, to get additional resources, it's amazing. I think it is very much deserving and should go into tier 1 category. However, it is one of the decks that really punishes you hard for a misplay. With Runic cards, you cannot really afford to do it. You don't have a battle phase to like mitigate your mistakes and just beat over monsters. So you kind of need to like do everything perfectly to maintain all of the card advantage that you were able to acquire. So yeah, there's that. And then we have the Life Twin Runic Sprite deck. And I want to put this in tier 1.5. I think it's really, really strong. The Sprite cards are kind of there to like get you started, and then Life Twin is there for your grind game, and Runic is there to act as disruptions. You don't have a lot of space to play tech cards because you're trying to like merge together 3 engines, but Runic cards kind of are your tech cards because it's like destruction, negation, spell trap removal, so you're good there, I think. And again, one of the decks that you need to play well and, you know, giving up your battle phase together with it. But I think it's a very, very interesting deck. A lot of top players played it at both events, so I think it's really cool. And since we're on topic of other Sprite stuff, I wanted to talk about Sprite Malfi as well. I think it's slightly better than the other version because you have your battle phase, and not only that, you're able to put up the negate with Herald of Arclight or the bounce through the other Malfi synchro, and you just easily bridge into your Malfi stuff. So before that, Sprite, the pure version at least, felt sort of like bare, like nothing really was going for it because you didn't have an exact end board, you didn't have anything you're going for every single time. It just felt kind of weird, and Sprite was like in a limbo and it just felt kind of without a purpose. And right now with Malfi, you can easily overlay into for Malfi of the Forest, and you just go for this additional engine for an additional disruption and or form of negation. And I just really like this. I think it gave Sprite, it sort of like rounded off the entire Sprite deck, and I really like that. And like I said, you have a battle phase. It's a bit easier to go up against certain decks with the help of the battle phase, of course. So other than that, both decks feel like they're almost on the same power level. And then I also wanted to talk about Sprite Brigade. So I want to put it like I'm not sure, maybe slightly lower, but I still think it's a really, really cool version. It does feel like the other ones are a bit better, but I don't want to count this deck out completely. I like it. I think it has a ton of potential, and a lot of good players played this deck as well. So it was also able to go very far. I think it lost in the Los Angeles YCS. So I really love the synergy. I think it's like, it's amazing. I just feel like it's slightly less strong than these ones, but there really isn't a big difference. So then we have the pure runic deck. I don't know, I wanted to put it on here, put it in not good. I don't think it's great because like I wanted the comparison between a runic deck that has engines like Naturia, like For Hire, Kashtira, Plunder, Sprite, whatever. And then you have the pure stuff, which is just a bit more easily, a lot more easily actually outed. So I wanted to put it in not good. It's just kind of, I don't know, I think it's cringe to play stun strategies, but that's like completely my opinion, and I don't really mess with them. So yeah, it's kind of obvious that it's quite easy to out right now with every single person citing cards like Cosmic Cyclone, stuff like that. So you just kind of annihilate this deck. However, it is still horrible to have your resources banished, to be out-decked, or go up against a Vanity's Fiend that you really cannot do anything against. So it's lame, and I really dislike it. And it's also not as great, so not good. Then we have Scareclaw. I wanted to put it in Rogue. Like, I think it can go here. What it has going for it is that it's kind of hard to out by decks like Branded, for example, because like their link is like a very strong Baguska, and it's not bad. It has the adventure stuff if you want to pair it together, and then there's also the pile versions, which we saw one of the pile versions do well at a YCS, but I still think it's only Rogue. Like, you cannot see one pile version do well and then be like, okay, this deck is amazing. If a lot of people jump to that, then maybe, but we're not in that kind of format, and then everything shifts if a lot of people start playing it. So for right now, it's only Rogue, even though it does seem like it has a very high ceiling, but it also seems like it could get outed quite easily if you have the correct hand traps, which you probably do. They have adventure stuff, but it is a 60 card version, and right now people play a ton of hand traps. So I'm glad to see the pile deck do well. It was really interesting to go through the deck list, but like I said, for right now, Scareclaw should probably be here. And the same goes for the Springans deck. I wanted to include it because he did have a top at one of the YCSs. I think I'll put it like here maybe. It seems interesting. It's playing Cyberstein to go into Naturia Extario. You have the Theory and stuff, and then you have your Springans cards and some additional like hand traps and stuff like that. It doesn't seem like it's exactly on the power level of some other decks though, so I still think it's only Rogue. And then we also have Sword Soul, which sort of feels like it has fallen off quite a bit. We didn't see any. Did we see any Sword Soul tops actually? Yeah, we did see a couple. I went over a couple of the lists in my like best deck lists from the YCS's video. However, I think it should go like maybe here, or like even lower, maybe like next to Plunder. I don't know, I might be doing it injustice. I just feel like it's one of those decks where maybe at a regional level you're able to, like, you know, get a top, but at a very big event it seems like the deck is just not doing enough. Like, you get one Moye negated and then what are you really doing? It just seems like it's not there. Probably Rogue. Like, it's just the way I feel about it at this point in time. Tier is like Rogue still, I think. It should go like somewhere, maybe like here. It feels like it's one of these decks where sometimes it's able to do well if you really play it well and if you build it well. However, I think it's a bit more easily countered because you really need like the perfect mills, the perfect hand. You don't have as many tier names. You can't really afford to make mistakes, and just overall, I don't know. Only one person I think did well with tier from the lists I've seen. Maybe there were more than that, but I just feel like tier is still in such a weird place right now, and not a lot of people are really trying to test it because you have better options to play. So like, why waste your time on tier? As much as that like seems sad, why waste the time if you can just play Kashtira or Naturia Runic? So it should go somewhere here probably. And then we have Chapchix. So Chapchix is in a very weird place, I think. I want to put it like maybe next to Dark World. I don't think it's as bad as, like, I don't know, Runic, the pure stuff, or some of these decks down here, but it's not as far ahead as you would maybe like to believe. Like, I think Chapchix was just really hyped when it came out and was a really budget deck to pick up, and also not a lot of people knew what the cards were doing. You also counter Kashtira with cards like Floodgate Trap Hole and stuff like that, but you need to go first. Going second is just a struggle because your trap cards are not going to do anything. And we saw, I think on stream, there was a player who played out the Chapchix like turn just putting up monsters. I don't think they put down a single trap card, and I'm pretty sure that's the way you probably should be playing the deck, because if you have as many trap cards as we included and in the Chapchix deck, I don't know, a couple weeks back, your going second, like I said, is going to be just weird. You're not putting up things that are going to benefit you as much as some monsters would. So I think that's the version people should probably play, like really go monster heavy and just make this combo trap deck. But other than that, Chapchix is just kind of behind a lot of these decks. So I don't know. I think that's like the correct tier list. Some of these ones in Rogue could be like changed around, but other than that, I think I'm quite satisfied with it. Like, probably the only thing I would change is putting tier lower. I feel like it should go like maybe here, even below Dark World, because like I said, you know, it just feels like it's in a very weird place, and I think it would be doing all of these decks here injustice, especially Marinces, since I had tier above Marinces before. So I think this is like quite okay, and maybe put Labyrinth a tiny bit lower, just a tiny bit. And now I'm satisfied, I think. So let me know if you like this video, if you agree or disagree with my decisions. I always love to read you guys' responses in the comments down below, so make sure to comment, and of course like the video if you did like it. Check out all the other stuff, all the other social media, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye!